Welcome, everyone. It's a very special episode of the Buck Stops here, and I'm Kirk Buchner along with Chris Mouradian and Ron Katz. And I love October. Baseball playoffs are going on right now. Meaningful football, meaningful college football, basketball is about to kick off. But as this Canadian and my two honorary Canadian friends
Hey,
with us, there you
yeah,
go. Uh, it is as we're recording this, it's the dawn of hockey night. The NHL season is going to begin, and it's always a fascinating thing, the grind of the NHL season. Because right before this, I was watching a bit of baseball playoffs, and while the atmosphere around it is different, the game's the same. The game with hockey in the regular season, you're surviving just to get to the playoffs. And once you get there, the game is completely different. That's a story for another time. But you still got to get there. And you might see some great teams just do enough of what they have to do. And we'll sort of talk about that to get to the final 16. And some that just going to have to work their ass off to get there just to make it. I thought we'd start off with the East. And the way I did this, I didn't really give you a format because I figured I didn't have to. You all sort of can jump right in and you know exactly where I'm going to go. I did this in tiers. So I looked at the Eastern Conference first, and I've got three teams that I think are locks to get in the playoffs and a high seed.
fair enough.
All right. So I'm starting off with the team that I think, if you were to put a gun to my head and say, who's going to win the President's Trophy in Winnipeg? Hey, I'm Winnipeg. Don't hang that. They're going to hang it because if they don't hang, like, what else are you going to hang in Winnipeg?
Yeah. Been there, know what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they could hang an icicle celebration.
Better.
You need to put the banner up before the fans even get into the arena and just, nobody notices it, but it's there.
It gives them an excuse to celebrate something. But I know if I was there, I wouldn't be really cheering too loud because it doesn't mean a damn thing. But the team that gun to my head, who I think will win the President's Trophy, and the team that I think is one of the best, at least regular season teams in hockey this year, it's the Carolina Hurricanes. I love what they did in the offseason. I love the pickup of Nikolai Ehlers, a team that already had, I guess, the best Sebastian Aho in the league. There's a name. If you would have said, look, okay, there's going to be two of a name in a league, I wouldn't have picked Sebastian Aho 10 years ago, but here we are.
Would you have picked Elias Pettersson?
Before Aho, yes.
Because you have them both on the same team?
The league. I don't remember. Yeah, the same team. Yeah, that's true. So but I like what they've done. I love their team from top to bottom. I think that they've got a Calder possibility in Alexander Nikishkin. One thing I love about having Ron here, because Chris, you and I, we know our pro game, but Ron knows his college. So like he's not just wearing that Denver jersey as decoration.
They've only won the national championship 10 times, which is more than any school in NCAA history, and have won more recent championships and been in more Frozen Fours. But I don't know that much.
20 years ago, I didn't know there was such a university called Denver.
Yeah, no, and I've been to 13 of the last 16 Frozen Fours too, so I've seen it all. Best team wins, not the best players. It's called a
dynasty.
Well, the best team wins, not the best players, and also too, in that framework, you're talking about guys who are going to be there 3-4 years, sometimes 2 years, and there's certain programs like the Boston teams that recruit guys who are going to be number one overall in the NHL draft or top 5, and they know they're gone after a year. Denver doesn't do that, and that's one of the reasons for their success.
Yeah, I actually got, when we went to, because Ron came up here, and I was more interested in Ron explaining to me college hockey and all the changes of how that would sort of like impact the OHL and junior hockey that I grew up on, than the actual game itself.
No, it's going to be, and that's one thing too, for those who are thinking about NHL, the NCAA with all of the NIL and all the pay for players and rules being relaxed in part because of the courts, you're going to see players jumping a big impact from the OHL, well, actually CHL, encompassing all three leagues and junior leagues in Canada. You're going to see college teams with some of the top level guys, and vice versa. You have some college guys who've jumped. Denver had a guy who was like a healthy scratch or fourth liner who got maybe 5 minutes a game, and with I think it was Portland Winterhawks, he averaged over a point a game and got drafted just based on like 3 months of work. But you're going to see a lot of the Canadian players from Canadian juniors matriculating, and also the NCAA. It's a really weird rule, but there's some guys who played, I think, in the ECHL and AHL last year who are still were granted eligibility for this year. So it's like a free for all with the NIL and what's an amateur and what's not an amateur, and who knows. But something to keep an eye out.
Well, I mean, I kind of prefer it that way than how things also used to be. I remember as a kid not understanding why some of the best players couldn't go in the Olympics. But that's neither here nor there. I guess when I look back at Carolina, the only thing that I question is their goaltending tandem. And there's a lot of issues when I'm looking at the goalies like throughout. But as Ron can tell you, you can have a mediocre goalie and win a Stanley Cup. Ron's an Avs fan, so for those sort of wondering what
that's very unkempered. Unkempt.
Yeah,
I'm trying to pun.
No, I like that.
You got it. Yeah.
And quite frankly, if you look at, I know we'll get to the West in a bit, but look at what the Avalanche have. Obviously, what they started with, like how they could have begun with what they had last year, knowing what the result might be. And even the guys they have now, journeyman guys, who have an upside, but you just, you don't know what their ceiling is. Their floor's a lot lower than what they had last year. So, I mean, but they're journeymen. I mean, Mackenzie Blackwood, he's bounced around.
Well, I might as well use that joke I had now because they have that tandem of him and Scott Wedgwood. That's a lot of lumber in between the pipes.
You're not the first. And don't forget they had, until they traded him, Miles Wood last year, and there was another Wood, and they were like the team full of Wood. I digress.
So my other two top tiers in the East. Now that we're done talking about Wood, I got Tampa Bay. Love this team. Kucherov, Braden Point, Hagel, Gunzel, and Vasilevsky in between. They're another playoff. They're another lock to get in high. My other one, top dog. Let me scroll down here. Obviously, it's Florida, but I'm going to predict really early here. They're going to struggle early in the season because they're going to know what a lot of teams have to know in hockey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. They know this. Barkov is gone for the season, unfortunately, and that's a huge loss. Kachuk won't be there for the first month, but this team is so deep, so loaded, but also so tired. So I'm going to predict right now, Florida will start off very, very poorly. But they know how to get there. Those are my top three tiers locks in the East. Any dispute on that?
No, I kind of like that. Got to see a lot of the highlights from the Florida Tampa back to back over the weekend. If you want to call them highlights.
I do.
Left Tampa a little lighter in the wallet when all said and done. But yeah, those are. It's always a battle there. It's one of the reasons I dislike the current setup with the playoffs, where they tend to meet early on as opposed to later on when you like to see best on best. Carolina was kind of the dark horse going into the Cup finals last year and performed well up until they ran into Florida. They dispatched Washington relatively easily, and Washington went in there as they got the number one seed last year, didn't they?
I don't.
They were a top seed
Yeah.
there, so definitely a strong team. Kind of the way I looked at it was a little different. I tried to look at the teams that were there last year and try to figure, okay, well, who didn't make it that could, and who's in there that might fall out if somebody else makes it. So when I'd like to hear what Ron has to say about this, and then maybe kind of take that angle here with the back half of the East here.
I just think it's a really long season and a lot of things can happen. And I know, again, we'll talk about the West. I mean, Colorado could be a situation where they win the Stanley Cup or not make the playoffs. I mean, you just don't know about health and availability of players. I do like Carolina. Keep in mind, they made some unusual trades last year that have really not only bolstered their depth in terms of young prospects at a high level, but also freed up a lot of cap space for them to go and get Ellers and others to and then maybe later this season go out and get someone they really want. Because I mean, remember they traded for Rantanen, gave up Marty Netchus and others and draft picks or whatever, and then they end up flipping. They Rantanen said, "I'm not going to take what you're giving me." Flipped him to Dallas, and I can't remember the guy that they got who was the centerpiece of that with picks from Stanhoven.
Yeah, Stankoven.
Stankoven. And so, I mean, there's a lot. It's interesting to see how they put together the roster. I do think they need someone, and maybe Ellers is that guy. They need a superstar. They need someone who's can take over a game like a McKinnon or a Rantanen or someone at that level. And that they just had a lot of really good players, a lot of great depth. So
Carolina, talking about players that can maybe take over. Svechnikov, he's kind of their big time scorer there. Stankoven, I think they said they were trying him in the down the middle of this preseason to see if that might work as opposed to on the wing like he was last year. And then the aforementioned Aho. I think those are your big three coming back. And then you add Nikolai Ehlers, who can put the puck in the net. They're an interesting team. I agree with Kirk on the Carolina goaltending, though. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, I've got a second tier, and I've gone tiers in each one. And the second tier for me is a team that's going to make the playoffs relatively easily, but they're probably not going to win a division. They're probably going to be a middle seed. And that's two teams. I've got Toronto and Washington. Toronto loses Mitch Marner. The Big Four era is over, but what did the Big Four era get you? Nothing. Not a goddamn thing. I'm if it sounds like I'm happy about that, it's because I am.
Yeah, you are.
Yes. I've always joked how I would cheer for the Taliban against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that hasn't changed. I might cheer for Greta Thunberg and that flotilla that never goes anywhere over the Toronto
Maple Leafs.
Yeah, but they have the same problem that they had last year. They don't have any great goalies either. So I think they're going to be fine without Marner. Although I think Marner is going to, when we get to the West, I think he's going to have the best statistical season of his life. I truly believe that. But Toronto is the same treading water that they've always been in the last few years. And it wouldn't surprise me that when his contract's over, I didn't even think about when that's going to be. Wouldn't surprise me if Austin Matthews leaves.
Well, the one thing that's really interesting, and I know it's only a waiver claim, but they did claim Caden Primo from Montreal on waivers. And this is a kid who really stood on his head for Northeastern, and was a relatively high draft pick, turned pro early. I know he hasn't done a lot of accomplishment, but he's someone with the pedigree. And who could come out of nowhere. And the same thing with like Spencer Knight in Chicago. Like just put it all together, and then you're like, where did he come from? And then the goaltending solved. I mean, it's a crapshoot though.
I've got.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go
Uh,
ahead.
Austin Matthews, free agent schedule right now after the 27-28 season.
Oh, so for a while. Okay.
Yeah, a couple more seasons.
Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. Washington, I know everyone talks about Ovechkin, and they should, but for me, the key for them, it's John Carlson and that defense. I love that defense. I have for a long time. Washington is that team that could, I think they could sneak up on them, like on really anybody. I know that they were getting a higher pick, but I don't think, or a higher seed last year. I don't think that they were necessarily favored to do a whole lot. Washington, I think they might take a step back unless everyone in the blue line can sort of like keep them up because there's only so much Ovechkin's got left in that tank.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with your tier there. I think those are two teams that are going to be in the mix come April. Washington, I feel more confident about than Toronto. You losing a big player, I mean, that's going to be a lot to have to replace there. Even though they, as you said, they never really won anything with them there, but they got to the playoffs relatively easily with them there. So, Matthew Nyes kind of came on last season and looks like he probably would be the guy that maybe fills that role, but it's a lot of points to replace there. So I not as sold on Toronto as I am Washington. In fact, I'm more sold on another Canadian team than Toronto there. But we'll get to them.
I wonder if that's who I've got my third tier if we're ready to go to that one. This is sort of like echoing what Ron said earlier of teams that could. These are teams that I think could possibly finish anywhere in that conference, 3rd to 10th. Because there's so much possibility in these 4 teams that I think they've got a higher ceiling and a much lower floor. I'm starting off with the New Jersey Devils, and it all relies on the Hughes. If they're healthy, they could go very far. We've seen that when Jack Hughes is healthy and playing, they're a much different team. I'm not sold on Jacob Markstrom in between the pipes. I know a lot of pundits are. I'm not yet, but that's who I've got. Part of the other third tier I have is the New York Rangers. They fell apart last year, but this is still a very, very loaded team. Shesterkin's still there. Trocheck. Dad. JT Miller. I know they lost Chris Kreider, but Chris Kreider is not the most depth player I've always sort of like found. They also still have Adam Fox.
JT Miller, they added last season in a trade.
Yeah. I think they got in their own head last year. I think they're going to be much, much improved. And the wild card, maybe this is one of the teams that you were going to mention, Chris. Ottawa and Montreal, to me, they're the exact same team. They're loaded. They're loaded under 25 talent under 25, and both teams learned a lot by getting that playoff taste.
Yeah.
What do they do with that?
Yeah, for me, it was Montreal. That was the team that I was kind of eyeing up there over Toronto. I'm really, really excited to see what Demidov can do there with a full season. He is ultra talented, always kind of the unknown when you get one of the Russian players that come over, but he's coming over at a young age. He's an extremely talented player. I think he's going to be the odds-on favorite when the puck drops for the Calder. So we'll see how far he can develop here chemistry-wise with his team, and I think they have a chance to really make some noise there.
Ron,
I'm really impressed with what Marty St. Louis is doing up in Montreal. It's been pretty much like a culture change. I mean, they were just kind of treading water. I mean, wasted Carey Price's years. And it seems like he's like, if you've ever seen the videos of him interacting with players and with the media, it's just like a different era. And also later in the year, I think they have about $5.5 million in cap room. Sidney Crosby says he always wants to stay with the Penguins, but if the wheels keep on falling off in Pittsburgh, you never know. And I think Pittsburgh should be in that, what if kind of tier. Speaking of goaltending,
Interesting.
oh my goodness, right? But if they somehow were able to move some things around, you still got Gino and Sid and Letang, I guess. But
interesting. I got Pittsburgh in the toilet tier.
Well, but that also can be a domino effect to the rest of the league, because then you're talking about what do we do at the deadline, or like there have been all these rumors, like last year when Colorado traded with Carolina and cleared all this cap space with Rantanen. People here were like, "Oh, we're getting Sidney Crosby because him and McKinnon are from Nova Scotia. They train together, good friends, and all that." It wasn't happening because, like Sid said, yeah, stay put. But I think there might come a point where he says, "Hey, I think I want another ring." I almost showed you a finger I shouldn't have showed you because he already has rings on the other fingers, and I'm like, oh, I better not do that. But so it's just kind of like a wild card. That's a team with some talent, and you just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. I mean, look at the teams that made the playoffs last year, and the ones that didn't.
Mm-hmm. My next tier 4, I call this the wild card. The teams I just can't figure out. Boston and Columbus, two teams kind of trending in the wrong direction, or different direction. Sorry. Boston, obviously, there's a lot of veteran talent there. Pasternak's still there, one of my favorite players that's currently there, and things could break right for them. Columbus, this is a lot of pressure on Zach Werenski. What is he, and how good is he, and can he take a team to the playoffs? There has been a lot of predictions when I was looking at a lot of other hockey writers and their predictions, and Columbus came out a lot for the possible wild card 8th spot. I don't see it personally, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think they were 9th last year, just missing out to Montreal right at the end of the season. And, they got another year of experience on some of their younger players. I kind of had them lumped in with I guess it'd be like these 6, like these 3 that were there last year that may not make it this year, and then these 3 that weren't there that could make it this year. Detroit, Columbus, and New York Rangers, and then the Devils, Ottawa, and Toronto on the 3 that I think if somebody was going to fall out, I think it's going to be one of those 3. If somebody's going to jump in, it's going to be one of those 3. And Columbus just being close, learning a lot in that stretch run last year sets them up nicely, I think, to kind of break out early this season and maybe get a hold of a playoff spot early and hold it, as opposed to being out trying to chase in at the end.
Okay. I've got my next group. It's not impossible for them to make the playoffs. You mentioned one of those teams, but just everything has to go perfect. And I kind of wrote down what I think has to be perfect for each of them. Detroit, which had a decent run early in the season. They can score. There's not an issue there. Larkin, DeBrincat, and who am I forgetting? Raymond.
Thank you. Raymond, yeah.
That's as good a top 3 as that's better than most of the league right there. John Gibson, though, that's your new goalie. That's a lot to ask of someone who he's got to be near 35 at this point.
He's been around.
Not that old.
Yeah, but he was also never a superstar either.
But where was he?
He was in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And that's fair. For them, I think their issue is they've got to fix that penalty kill. They were dead last. If they stay healthy with everyone up front, if they can sort of go from 32nd to 16th, that's really all they necessarily need to do. to challenge for that 8th spot.
Yeah, I mean that's a big jump there. Just like you said, it's moving up to the middle of the pack. I mean that's going to be games won. They can figure that out.
Because I think they can do everything else fine. Gibson again, like I don't know. I think I'm harder on goalies as I'm going through all this, and I'm going through my notes ahead, like going further. I get 2 more teams that again they have to break right. The Islanders are one of those teams, and for me, the key there, Ilya Sorokin has to be Vezina level. If he is, he can carry that team to at least a few more extra wins, but they've got to get at least somebody to score, at least 2 30-goal scorers. They haven't had any in a long time.
Well, Sorokin certainly has a pretty good mentor right now in his head coach, who played a little goal back in the day.
Who's their head coach? I'm blanking.
He wore number 33 in Montreal and in Colorado.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, as long as he's a better coach than he was to his kid. I remember that one thing where his kid was sort of like punching a guy for no reason. Like, anyway, that was just.
Well, don't forget his first game with the Avalanche in 2013 against Anaheim. It got to the end of the game. He thought that McKinnon was a rookie, and he thought they were getting too chippy. Mm-hmm. So he literally shoved the partition, the glass on Bruce Boudreau. It's actually even a GIF on social media right now. If you look up Patrick Waugh, I was there and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Well, I'm not worried about Sorokin. I'm worried about everything else that they have. I'm writing off Philly, Pittsburgh, and Chicago right now. There's one other team though I want everyone's take on, and it's a little bit of a personal bias only because of where I grew up in the Hamilton area, which is right in between Toronto and Buffalo. I've always wanted to see, if my teams are eliminated, the city of Buffalo get a championship, be it in the NFL or the NHL. Buffalo has got some talent. They really do. But everything always falls apart. If Rasmus Dahlin is a possible Norris Trophy winner, Tage Thompson, I think, as a Canadian, I think you should go with the French way, Tage, and then things might actually go better. Give it a shot. What do you got to lose?
Well, hopefully he makes the Olympic team too. But just one thing, going back to the Islanders, watch out, potential rookie of the year. What's that?
Schaefer?
No, Cal Ritchie.
Oh, okay.
Immensely talented player. And the Avalanche gave him up with a high draft pick for now I'm blanking because the guy is related to the Christian family, like the famous War Road family. He's a number 2 center for the Avalanche, and I'm just blanking right now.
Horvat?
No.
Gigi Pajot?
No. No, he's on the Avalanche now.
Oh, on the Avalanche. I'm looking at the Islanders. I'm sorry.
I'm just.
Brock Nelson?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And they traded Nelson and they traded Ritchie and I think a high pick for him. And this kid just has incredible skills. I mean, I saw him in a preseason game, scored like a top 1 goal, like top 10 play. He was like number 1 for the day on SportsCenter. I mean, just like the Avalanche could regret that trade. And that's a guy who could be like in 80 points as a rookie.
The 3 teams that I've got that I didn't even want to waste my breath on. Any disagreement on those? Philly, Pittsburgh, Chicago. Also wrote down that we'll see them on the NBC hockey package a lot.
Yeah. Philadelphia.
For the better of the 3, but.
Yeah, interested to see Metrikov's second season there. But yeah, I think those are the 3 teams that you look at from the 30,000 feet view. They're going to be the ones that struggle the most to try to secure a playoff spot.
Yeah, and I think with Chicago, when your second most famous player is Connor Bedard's mom, that's enough said.
But see, those are teams especially Philly and Chicago, that if the young players play up to their potential and just like the light bulb turns on and there's a connection, like in Philly too, a lot of the players. Oh, I can't tell you how I know this, but we're kind of Tortorella wasn't the best at getting the most out of certain players, especially the younger players. Like whenever there'd be some adversity, I mean, he did something really crappy to a player. Like he was good playing his first NHL game back in his hometown, and Tortorella scratched him and said, "Well, he's not playing well enough. He doesn't deserve." Like he just did stuff like that. Think of any place you've worked or work, people you've worked with and a boss who just did stuff like that. It's not great for optimal performance. So I think see what happens in Philly early with the new head coach.
Interesting. So this makes us the 812th podcast to sort of like say that, no, Tortorella's not a nice guy.
He's a nice, I'm sorry to interrupt, Chris.
No,
he isn't a bad guy on a lot of fronts. Like he's very well liked, but as a head coach, he just does certain things that may have worked for Tampa 20 years ago, but it's not aligned to current players.
Shall we move on to the West?
Let's do it.
All right. So same idea. I got 3 teams in the top tier, and I'll start off with Edmonton. It's the same team coming back. McDavid just re-signed for another 2 years, which is
well, okay. 12 and a half.
Yeah.
Like he didn't like try to break the bank for longer term. Mm-hmm. And with the new CBA that starts after this season, the longest term he can get is 7 years, not anything greater than that if he resigns with his current team. But to go at 12 and a half, by the way, that's the same that McKinnon's at. Just take discount for the team.
And I think that sort of shows that he believes that he's on the best. This is the best opportunity for him to win. Before we sort of like did this, I was thinking to myself, and I think I said this to you, Chris, at one point, that I don't want Connor McDavid to go down as the best player to not win a Stanley Cup. But I think he's already got that now. He's already the best player not to win a Stanley Cup. The closest person I could think of is Marcel Dion. And I think Connor McDavid's already eclipsed Marcel, and Marcel was fantastic.
Yeah. I remember we talking about that on a different show. No, you're right. I mean, he sees his team right there. Why wouldn't he? Twice to the finals. They just happen to run into a team that has their number right now. But yeah, you have Draisaitl, you have Bouchard on the blue line. I mean, it's a really good team, very strong team, and they were able to package their headache and contract out to their division rival that helps them re-sign their young defenseman to a longer contract.
Vander's good. He's good.
Oh yeah, he's real good. I'm not sure what he's good at.
I'm sure that's what he says every time he goes to the casino.
Yeah,
I'm really good, and then he forgets all the time he's bad.
Yeah,
but it's the same issue though. They got no goalie. I mean, I like Stuart Skinner, but he's not.
He's fine unless he's playing Florida right now. That's just it. I mean, he's been able to win every series outside of Florida.
Well, didn't Pickard play a few of those? Or no, Skinner was hurt for a bit of that.
Yeah, Pickard was hot, very hot in the playoffs. But I mean, if you look at his body of work in the NHL, he's not someone you would say, "Oh yeah, just put him in there and he's going to run the table."
Yeah.
My second team, and actually more people are picking them to win it all, or at least win the West. That's Vegas. And we already talked about Mitch Marner. My prediction is, and a lot of people are predicting this, he's going to have his best stat year. I can't wait to see what he does with Eichel. Barbashev's going to have 30 goals this year. Watch that. The defense is a little thin, but Vegas also has a pedigree of winning. Some of these guys have been on that championship team. Vegas could do very well. The other team I've got, it's not your Avalanche though, Ron. I've got them in their own separate tier. I got Dallas.
That's
They've been
good.
good.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, they've been so good so long, and now with Miko for a full year, Jake Ottinger like in goal, Dallas consistent from beginning to end. Those are my top three. Any disagreement?
Not at all. No, they were the first three I would have gravitated to as well. Putting them in tiers like that. The second tier, teams that aren't in the first tier are pretty stacked as well. So it'd be interesting here.
Well, I have a separate. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
I would just say, look at the divisions, and especially in the Central. I mean, you had Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado. The Wild are on the upswing. St. Louis will be better this year. It looks like Utah has a little more talent and younger talent. And then you've got Nashville and Chicago. Like, those are all teams that could be, that were at almost 90 points or higher. I mean, you didn't have like the San Jose's or Seattle's in there. So, I mean, it's just tough.
Yeah. Well,
and also go back to one thing we were talked about earlier, before this. The new CBA that's been agreed to for next season includes stuff that the Floridas and the Vegas, and even last year, Colorado with Gabriel Landeskog, he couldn't have shown up in the playoffs, even though he's legitimately injured for 3 years. The new CBA says if a player gets injured, you don't get all of his cap space. You get the league salary average for the previous season, which I looked it up. It's about $3.5 million. That's all the room that you get. If you say, okay, the guy's out, situation like Barkov, if Florida wanted to replace him, and took his full cap amount as the replacement, he would be ineligible for the playoffs. So it's a completely different world for these teams, and being creative with things. And something, especially with Vegas, with some of the shenanigans they've done within the rules over the past few years, ain't gonna happen this year. And one final thing, for the playoffs, you have to field a roster that is compliant with the cap. When you get to the playoffs, you can't just have people who came back from injury and you're 20 million over the cap with your playoff roster. So it's going to change a lot for these Western teams because of how competitive it is.
I forgot a lot about what Vegas was doing before. Yes. How did I forget that?
Well, like Alex Pietrangelo, I don't think he's coming back at all this year. But if they take the full charge for the cap to replace him, then he ain't playing in the playoffs if he's able to play.
Well, this sort of segues right here to you, or not segues, but I have a tier 1.5, Colorado. I don't have them in the upper tier. I can't put them in tier 2. McKinnon, Makar, they're gods. They're gods at what they do. You mentioned Landeskog, he's back. They've still got so much veteran presence, but it's the wood in the goal. Ron, take it away. This is
the wood. Well, I subscribe to the Bill Parcells. I know it's an NFL reference. School. Well, actually, Dennis Green. Okay, they are who we thought they were. Okay, you are what your record is. Okay, you have to look at the player's body of work over the years. Like when Calvin Pickard for Edmonton in the playoffs, you have guys who get hot, and then eventually, they fall off the ledge more often than not. Mackenzie Blackwood looked like spectacular last year at times, and then he had a little bit of a plateau. And I thought he certainly against Dallas held his own for the most part. He didn't. It wasn't like the lights were too big. Wedgwood has a little playoff experience, but they're journeyman goalies. You just don't know. Is Wedgwood going to be like higher than a Darcy Kemper in terms of his impact? Or is he just a guy? Look at his stats. He hasn't played like 50, 60 games in a season. So you just don't know what you're going to get out of someone like that. But it's definitely a super big leap from Georgiev's inconsistency and the Finnish goalie, I can't think of his name, who they traded to Nashville. But I would say there's a lot of question marks for the Avalanche. A lot of question marks. You know, I mean, a lot falls on McKinnon. He gets very frustrated when things don't go quite right. Landeskog, like surgically, he missed the equivalent of 3 seasons. He hadn't played since he lifted the Stanley Cup. To expect him to make it through 82 games, you know, that's an X factor. Val Nichushkin, you know, can he make it through a season without a suspension or leave of absence? I mean, and a guy can be like the most top 5, top 3 dominating in front of the net, you know, finishers. But if he goes out, you know, you're talking about salary cap and other replacement issues. There's a lot of X factors there. Marty Netches, they're close or trying to get him signed. But if they have to move him like they did Rantanen to get assets, you just don't know. I mean, I'll get in trouble with people in Colorado if they see this. But Colorado, if you look how the Western Conference is, they could be golfing by mid-April. Or by the middle to end of June, they could be hoisting that Stanley Cup again. It's really hard, and they don't really have a good 3 center because they had to trade Charlie Coyle, who they gave up a heck of a lot for. You know, and he ended up being a rental. They got a couple picks for him, along with Miles. They got rid of a Wood with him, Miles. but so you know, what do they do? And you know, it's Logan O'Connor's, like, I think still recovering from some injuries. So it's really hard to gauge them. They could be fantastic if everyone plays up to their potential and, you know, their ceiling, or it could be like, oh gosh. I mean, Jonathan Drouin was a guy that lost too, who he played with McKinnon back in junior and have had a career rebirth here. He's with the Islanders and Patrick Roy. So it's really, they're a mystery team to me. Everyone here in Colorado thinks, oh, they're going to win the cup again. Let's just see.
I've got 3 teams in tier 2, 3 teams that should make the playoffs, but to Ron's point, this is a lot harder conference than the East. Winnipeg, Los Angeles, and Minnesota. I'll just start with Winnipeg since that's my team. I did not have them as a number 1 seed last year. I don't have them returning at that again. The loss of Ehlers will hurt. Saying that, this is a team that has, and I don't, it's not fair to the rest of the team to say Connor Hellebuyck stands on his head. But Connor Hellebuyck was a workhorse, and then everything always changes in the playoffs. Always. It just always sort of does for him in the Jets. Or at least it hasn't, I shouldn't say always, because in 2016 he was pretty good. And in Winnipeg, everything has to like blow the right way. You've got to find players who actually want to be in Winnipeg. And that's pretty goddamn hard to do. And having lived in Winnipeg for a couple years, I can see why, but then I can see why it appeals to some people. Connor loves sort of the outdoors, and he sort of likes the lifestyle that it brings him. It looks like they think Kyle Connor might resign. And that would be pretty huge. But everything begins and ends with Hellebuyck. And what difference does it make if you sort of like get into the regular season and if you don't have the gears to sort of like go behind to sort of like push further? Josh Morrissey, I think, is the biggest key on that team, providing that Hellebuyck remains Connor Hellebuyck for another season. Morrissey is a potential Norris Trophy candidate. but they just need a little bit more. With LA, it's the same team that pushed Edmonton again to the first round. It's going to be a little emotional with it being Kopitar's last year. And we already talked about Minnesota. We've got Kirill Kaprizov. A lot of eyes on him with that giant contract that he signed. I love Brock Faber. I think you've got Ron. I think you've got a player you like better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not that I'm going to say he's better than him, but this kid Zeev Bouillon is just, he'll be the best defenseman on Minnesota within a year or two. Could win the Calder Cup if he gets his legs under him and finds his niche. Played at the University of Denver. Should have won the Hobey Baker last year. But just a dynamic young defenseman. If they pair, I don't know who he's being paired with, but if he's someone who has a bigger guy with some mobility who has his back, he's smaller. He's just like, he was making NHL plays as a freshman at Denver and just continued that last year and has gotten on the gritty side of things. But just, Minnesota traded up for him, I think 10th overall, last year in the draft. And just, I mean, I think this team overall is on the up. That's what makes me worried for the Avalanche, being in the same division, competing for the same slots.
Yeah, being the neighbor here for me, get to see a lot of. I used to get to see a lot of Minnesota games on the Fox Sports channel. They are a good team. They're younger, but they're not young. They have a lot of their talent is under contract for a while. So I agree with you on Bouillon. I like his game. I think he's going to be dynamic for them, and I actually think that they're a dark horse candidate to challenge for the Cup this year, push deep in the playoffs if they can get a high enough seed in the regular season. But I think we're overlooking the big main factor here was the Kings and their signing of Corey Perry, which ensures that they're going to win the West and lose to somebody in the East.
The Perry jinx. Hey, Kirk, one thing going back to Edmonton, speaking of college players, a guy to watch out for, although I don't think he was the best player in college hockey last year, he won the Hobey Baker, is Isaac Coward. A pretty dynamic player, high skill, played at Michigan State, kind of under the radar, was acquired by the Oilers in the offseason. And I think it was, he wasn't going to sign with another team. There's something that NCAA players can do that forces NHL teams to have to do some things. Adam Fox did that, and others have. But he's someone who could really, let's say he comes in and scores 25, 30 goals. That's out of nowhere.
Okay. So my tier 3 is 3 teams that, again, could do very, very well in the regular season standings, or they could be in the top, or they could be like down to 10th or 11th. A lot of people, I think we've already mentioned this, are talking about Utah. Utah is that sexy team, and sometimes when a team sort of seems too sexy, sort of like they're at the bar, they're a 10, and then the lights come off and they're a 6. Not that I've ever experienced that. Sometimes I don't look better with the lights on either. But anyway, I like a lot of the guys who were on the old Arizona team. Clayton Keller was somebody who I think is just due for a breakout. A lot of people haven't seen him play. Hopefully he's going to get a little bit more attention. I like their goalie, Velmelka. I can never pronounce that right. But they've added a lot of players this year. Paterka from Buffalo, Tanev, Nate Schmidt, who I got to see a lot in Winnipeg. And they've got a decent backup in Vanacek from New Jersey. I think he was playing for New Jersey last year. So I like the Mammoth. I like the name. The Yeti would have been better because, how epic would that be? Hey, honey, I can't go to dinner tonight. I'm going to go see the Yeti and the Kraken.
Well, they like stealing Colorado sports team names there. Um,
It's true.
that's our lacrosse team here in Denver.
Oh, okay.
Ron, you'll have to tell Chris the story because we had Adrian Dater on the show, and he was sort of like how he broke the story that saved it from being the Colorado. Was it the Extreme?
Oh, I can't remember. It was just
Like some awful name, the Rocky Extreme or something like that. Which was around the same. Was that before or after? Yeah, no, that would have been before the band Extreme, if you want to call them a band, but that's another story. My other two teams in that St. Louis, a lot of people are thinking they're going to make a good jump, and they have a decent team. Snooderud is another player that's getting a lot of Calder attention. I don't know what they have beyond that's top six of Thomas, Suter, Buchnevich, Holloway, Kyrou, and Snunigrud.
well, don't
Jimmy Snuggerud, yeah.
well, don't forget. Speaking of another Denver connection, Jim Montgomery's the head coach, and that's where he played his NHL career there. And the guy is just off the charts in terms of X's and O's and motivating players. Got a raw deal in Boston. And his Dallas stint, he had some personal issues health wise, but look what he did in Boston, with a little more talent, but still he's great with young players, getting the most out of them.
And well, the other one I got is your team there, Chris. Vancouver. A lot of people are ready to bury them. I can't when a team's this top heavy. Demko's back. Quinn Hughes. We talked about a possible Norris winner. Pedersen, Boser, you've got. And when Evander's hot, Evander's hot.
Yeah, he'll get hot at the roulette table one of these days and win all his money back from his bankruptcy there. I don't know what to think of them, honestly. As you mentioned, they have a lot of talent, but they just haven't been able to put it together yet. Pedersen is a true number one center. He's got the talent to be a magician on the ice there. Brock Besser's can score goals. Not much of a passer, but he can score goals. And if he's being set up by Pedersen, he's going to score. Quinn Hughes is one of the top two defensemen right now in the NHL, probably. Easily going to be one of the top United States defensemen come Olympics time.
Well, that's going to be a fun preview show, huh?
Yeah.
Ron, we're already volunteering you for that one, by the way.
Goaltending, Demko is back, and he's proven that he can win. Lankinen was good last year, but that was the first time he's ever been, the quote unquote number one. So Did he just catch lightning in a bottle, or is he really that good? They signed both of them to decent contracts. So I don't know if it's a situation where one of them is going to make it and the other one's going to get shipped or what here during the season. But beyond the top, they're really kind of, it falls off pretty quick. They don't really have a second line center. Hugh Suter was the second line center last year. He left in free agency without really much resistance. I think he went to St. Louis.
Yep.
Their third line is fine. Fourth line, they could use a little more ruggedness. They got the kid. I can't think of his name now. I think he led the league in hits last year after coming over from Nashville. So they do have a little bit of grit, but I think they need a little more grit and a little more out of their defensemen. Ronick was okay, but he can be better. Tyler Myers is affectionately nicknamed the Chaos Giraffe on the ice there because of his size and just the way he plays. Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, showed that he can be an NHLer this last season, so they'll be expecting more from him. Could they make it? Yeah. Am I holding my breath that they're going to make it? Not really, just because of how strong the rest of the Western Conference is. And I don't believe, even though they added Evander Kane, that he's going to make that much of a difference at the end of the day for them. I think they're on the outside looking in again.
What do you think about like losing some of the grittier guys like Dakota, Joshua, and so forth? I know he didn't have much of a year last year compared to the previous.
Yeah, so he actually late start last year because of off-season cancer surgery. So the fact that he was able to kind of fight his way back and get into the lineup again was good. He was a guy that rewarded based off of a breakout season that really kind of came out of nowhere, and I always kind of felt like they threw money at him too quickly, too much too soon. So he'd have been a nice player to hold on to, but not at that price. So I think being able to unload him
Gotcha.
and free up some cap space, because they are they have been for quite a while right up against the upper level of the cap. Jake DeBrusk signing never made sense to me. He's a guy I kind of forget he's on the ice until the puck accidentally bounces off him and goes in the back of the net. Filipino can be talented, but he's a hard check away from being in the press box with another concussion. He's really got to be careful out there. They need to find a guardian cap for him when he's playing out there with them to try to help him out. But if he's healthy, he can be he is very, very talented. But that's kind of the headline return when they traded JT Miller to the Rangers. Yeah, I just to me, DeBrusk looks like a buyout candidate. Like I said, I've never been on board with that signing. I think he's taking up space that could be used better elsewhere. I just don't like the way the team's constructed right now. Hey, as a fan, I hope they prove me wrong, but I'm kind of going into this trying to look at it realistically, and just really don't see enough there with the teams that were already ahead of them coming into the season.
Okay. I've got a one team that's sort of in a tier all its own. A team that could just leapfrog, and maybe if Utah's the sexy pick, this is the sneaky pick. I got Anaheim as a team that could just come out of nowhere. I like Dostal in net, and they've added 2 veterans. Let's see what they've got left in Granlund and Kreider. McTavish, someone who Ron knows pretty well, saw piles of time with Troy Terry. This could be a really fun team, and a team that has really no pressure because no one's expecting him to do. No one's looking at him.
Well, the other thing is keep in mind, sometimes we look at the players more than anything. But like my Philly example, you thought, oh, they were horrible. They got all these young guys with no direction. But look who's behind the bench in Anaheim now.
Mm-hmm.
He has a few rings, knows what it takes. He didn't do so great in Florida, but Quenneville's back.
Yeah, and if he does something there, I mean, can he sort of like take off the stink of was it Adam Beach, I believe, was the player in Chicago?
Kyle.
Oh, Kyle Beach, sorry. Adam Beach is the actor from Law and Order. Okay. I got the beach part right. So, which is something that I said when that happened, back when the elevator show was part of the show that I do with Evan. I said he just got exiled from the building, but they let him back in the building. So Quenneville, who is, I think he's still the winningest coach in all of the NHL, if I'm not mistaken.
Active coach?
I think period.
No.
I think Scotty Bowman would have more wins than Quenneville.
I don't know if someone wants to sort of like check that out while I'm sort of looking.
I'm doing it right now.
No, I kind of like that. I looked at Anaheim as being a team that had a good offseason that has a chance to make some inroads. I think they can be closer to number 8 than a lot of the other teams that missed the playoffs last year.
Okay.
Yeah, Quenneville right now is only about 400 wins behind Scotty
Bowman. Okay, so
but Paul Maurice is at number 3.
All right, so
there's only 3.
Okay,
he has 1,090 wins. Maurice
only off by 1.
Yeah, Maurice has like 1,002, and Lindy Ruff's pushing there at 971
Like
among actives.
I used to say to my dad when you didn't like my grades, I borrowed that from Rodney and back to school. A, B, C. I made the top three. Yeah, he didn't like that one. How you doing, Dad? I got two teams that could I just think better than their standings are going to show just because they're in the wrong conference, and that's Calgary and Nashville. I don't know how those two teams are going to like make a jump when there's just so many good teams ahead of them. But I think they're going to rack up some wins against some decent competition. I think one of them will be fool's gold at some point until they're sort of brought down to earth. I don't know which one it'll be. I feel a lot. I've been reading a lot more people higher on Calgary than I am, but I just don't see how either team can sort of like get through. Do any of you sort of like think anything of those two teams as a possible playoff contender?
Not as a playoff contender, as a rebuild. I will say, Nashville, they are the parent team for Milwaukee. So we do see a lot of their players kind of start here and then move on. They're well known for using their minor leagues to develop their players. So they're collecting talent. The Admirals, the minor league team, was one of the stronger teams in the minors last year. So I don't see them as necessarily the bottom, but I think they're going to learn and they're going to figure a way out to because they always seem to. They have a good structure, organizational structure on how to develop talent, and having UC Staros in the net there is going to help them win some games that they probably don't deserve to win.
Mm. Well, my Western Toilet Bowl is, I guess, my local team right now: Seattle, Chicago, San Jose. I think they're already mathematically eliminated. I don't know if that there's any. I feel bad for the people of Chicago, great sports city. I was at the 5 kilometer fun run for the Seattle Kraken here. I didn't run.
Did you crack it?
Why
did you crack them?
Did not crack them. No, I didn't run because my wife and I are not much in terms of running. Now, had I been able to row, huh? As evidenced by my wonderful medal here, my rowing medal. But yeah, it's just they're going to be in the basement. It's just a matter of which one is going to be worse. I don't know which one's going to be worse.
I kind of like the talent San Jose is collecting out there. It kind of helps when you have the top pick and then the second pick and back-to-back drafts. But it's going to be a long road there for them.
Okay. I'm going to ask each one of you to do we're going to wrap this up just because Chris is nearing his bedtime. They're in the central time as we're recording this. Ron's still on some steam from his whirlwind tour of everywhere.
No,
he'll text me. It's
like just San Diego.
Yeah, but every time I get a text from you, and then it might be, or like a message from you, it might be you're not in Denver. It's always somewhere else. It's great. Or be like, I love it also too. Like, hey, I might be there next week, or I might not.
No, I might be there tomorrow.
I'll be here. So there you go. Hart Trophy predictions. Go.
I'll just go with the popular name. We'll go with McDavid. I mean, he's signed the contract. He's on one of the best teams. He's gonna be one of the top scorers, one of the leaders. I think is just it's a safe, easy pick.
Okay, Ron.
It's hard to say. I mean, I still like McKinnon because you could just tell he was burning about getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs, and some of the words he had, like the guy is maniacal, like in terms of preparation. I think you see a lot from him. I know that's the easy pick. Just one X factor, the Olympics break. There's going to be someone who's maybe a little dinged up and doesn't go to the Olympics, or just maybe is having a career year and goes to the Olympics, and it just raises his game to another level. and comes on the home stretch and wins the Hart Trophy. We saw that in 1987-88 with Mario Lemieux playing in Canada Cup with Gretzky, and it just, Lemieux to Gretzky to Lemieux, he shoots and scores. Like you just saw a great player become even greater. It could be McDavid, it could be McKinnon, it could even be Kachuk.
Well, I couldn't go with Kachuk because he's going to miss a few weeks.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean. Like someone that you might not think could win it, who's like maybe in the very good to almost great tier, just shoot straight up based on the exposure at that level and playing with the greatest of the great.
Okay. Those were my 1A and 1B. So I'm just going to throw something out there just to be a contrarian. Jack Hughes.
Good young talent out there. He's gonna, as Ron pointed, he's gonna be in the Olympics. He could be one of those guys that just has a tournament that propels him forward to a real strong finish to the season and gets his name out there. That's nice nice thought there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I won't go through all the other awards. We'll just sort of like wrap that up. And for those wondering, this is Winnie. Winnie just shows up on every show. She's here just so that she doesn't bark and sort of like become more of a pest. Winnie also wants to remind everyone, wherever you are, wherever you may be, make today count because it never comes again. Take care, everybody, and check out everything else that we do here at Not in Hall of Fame. That includes the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. Ron and Chris have been a big part of that, and you can go vote at www.theusahof.com. Make your voices heard and help us decide who is part of the third United States Athletic Hall of Fame class. Take care, everybody.
Richmond Webb for Pro Football Hall of Fame.
There's that too.
How obvious or subtle.
We're men. Subtlety has never been our strength.